What's up, witches? I'm back today with a very special video, or at least maybe a little bit of a more personal one, even though the topic that I would like to discuss in today's video is the concept that you will find, especially within Norse paganism, of the Fylgja. So I wanted to do a little video just talking very briefly about what the Fylgja is, but more specifically just how I personally came to discover what my own Fylgja are. So let's get into it. So what is the Fylgja? This is a term that you will start coming across if you are getting into the path of Norse paganism, and I've seen a lot of discussion and debate on what exactly this term means and what a Fylgja is. So I'm going to be referring specifically to the concept as defined in Kveldulf Gundersson's books on Teutonic magic and religion. So in those books, he does briefly go over like the whole Norse cosmology and the Norse view of a person's soul or spirit and how it's kind of divided and split up. You will see the term Fylgja. And this can sometimes be said to be a word for that we would see referred to in British or Anglo-Saxon paganism, or just in folklore and superstition as the fetch. And the fetch in those terms would sometimes be almost akin to the concept of the doppelganger, where the fetch was an image of a person, or rather a person's soul or spirit, that would usually only appear to people without the second sight or some type of, psychic or mediumship ability to see spirits. It would typically only be seen by people after or slightly before that person has died. And so you would see the person's fetch appear before you almost as like an omen, or like an omen, or like a fetch, or a sending is another word for it, where you will see the person's spirit either shortly before, during, or after the person has passed away. But in the northern traditions or Norse paganism, the Fylgja is a specific term. It can refer to an animal form, which also shows the person's or soul's inner nature, or perhaps can also be a reflection of their physical or mental condition. And so it's not quite the same thing as a totem animal or a spirit animal. It's not the same as a spirit guide, because a spirit guide could be an anthropomorphic or humanoid spirit, or it could be an animal spirit, which is something separate from or outside of the person's energy or being, which can come to them or be sent to them as a messenger and is meant to guide you along a path or in a specific direction, or just provide you with guidance. But the Fylgja is not something that is separate from ourselves. Even though it might appear to us in an animal form, it is actually just kind of an outreach or appendage of our own spirit. The closest thing that I could probably think of as a modern reference to help put it into context is if you've ever read Philip Pullman's The Golden Compass series, or sometimes referred to as his Dark Materials. And it was made into a movie, and it's a show on HBO right now, where you will see in this other world, or this parallel world to our own, every human being has an animal familiar, but it's actually an outward representation or reflection of their own soul, spirit, and personality. So in those books, when someone is born, they have basically like talk about wearing your heart on your sleeve, you literally have this outward manifestation of your soul or spirit that comes into the world with you, and it accompanies you your entire life. And in that book, they're so closely related to the person that they are attached to that if you were to hurt or inflict pain on someone's animal, spirit, or daemon, as it's referred to in those books, it will also inflict pain on the human, and vice versa. So they are so deeply connected. One is a part of the other, and it's interesting in those books because up through childhood and until I think someone reaches puberty, the animal, spirit, or daemon can actually shift form into different animals, and it typically won't settle on a final form or permanent form until the person has reached adolescence. And it kind of ties into overall metaphors or themes of the books, but it's very similar to that, I feel like. Over time in those books, spoilers, eventually you see this person from this other dimension meeting up with someone from our world, and as that person from our world begins to spend more time with these other people and sees their daemons and their animal spirit familiars, they actually learn how to see their own. And it's something where it's like a Fylgja. It's always with you. It's just that in our world, it's not an outward manifestation. It's more of a spirit form. And if you have second sight or can train your eyes, you will learn to see yours. But in their world, they are just visible all the time. So it's very similar to that, because it is separate from us, but it is not a separate being. It is an outward manifestation of our spirit. I think it's very important to keep in mind that it is not the same as a spirit animal or a spirit guide. The Fylgja is not an outside entity. It is a part of you and an extension of yourself. In the books by Gunderson, he states that the fetch can be sent out from the body in order to bring back knowledge, or it can also be possible to consciously inhabit your fetch or Fylgja's shape when faring away from the body, such as when doing astral projection, meditation, realm travel, or trance work. And so that is what I see our Fylgja's primary role as, and this is where I'm going to start transitioning into more of the UPG and my own personal gnosis and thoughts and opinions on the Fylgja and what the Fylgja's purpose is, or rather how we can kind of learn to work with and harness its abilities and work in tandem with our Fylgja spirit to help in our own path workings. The Fylgja takes an animal form because not only is it just a reflection of our inner personality or inner spirit, but it's also kind of a form of protection during realm travel. And specifically, I have also found myself in my Fylgja form in dreams and while doing dream work and dream travel. And it's almost like a form of protection for your soul or your spirit, because animals have more of those basic animal instincts, those instincts for protection, those heightened senses and heightened senses of awareness that we might need when we're traveling into unfamiliar territory, whether that be inward travel or spirit realm travel or dream travel. We can kind of inhabit our animal or Fylgja form to protect our minds, protect our energies, and protect our human forms when we're venturing forth. I see that is our primary role, is where spirit guides can be sent to us as messengers. The Fylgja can aid us in meditation and trance work and astral travel by allowing us to kind of take this outward form and separate ourselves from our direct consciousness or our direct minds, so that there's kind of that buffer. Another thing that Gunderson brought up in the Teutonic Magic and Religions books that is also, I think, important for us to keep in mind when we are trying to seek out our Fylgja, inhabit, and work with our Fylgja is that its judgment at the end of the day is that of an animal's. So while it can be useful and of aid to you, and you can rely on information and feedback from your Fylgja when kind of making important choices or judgments or doing shadow work, it is important to remember that at the end of the day, it is an animal, and its judgments and level of understanding sometimes is not going to be any higher or more insightful than that of an animal's. So it can sense antipathy, negativity, and danger, and it can perceive information that is not normally available to the witch or the hedge worker. But at the end of the day, we also need to even take our Fylgja's feedback and information with that grain of salt, and with the understanding that it's coming to us from a very base, primitive level of understanding. And so there might be that like primitive fear coming into place, or that sense of we need to like protect ourselves. And so we need our higher mind, our human mind, to kind of come in and intercede and be able to interpret that information and that data in a way that is actually useful to us, and knowing when to take that information into account and trust those animal instincts, and when it may be okay to realize that that is the position where our Fylgja is coming from, and maybe we don't always have to just take what it's saying and run with it. It's just providing extra sensory outside information to us that we might not be able to pick up on with our human capabilities, but it can kind of aid in our mind's eye in other journeys or in trance work. And so for me specifically, the ways that I came to discover what my Fylgjas were, and not only that, but reinforced to me what my Fylgjas were. And I say Fylgjas, not Fylgja, what my Fylgja is, because I do at this point in time believe that I have two. And mine specifically are that I have one for lower realm travel, which is a land animal, and one for higher realm travel, which is a bird. So the way that I came to discover what my own personal Fylgjas are was through guided meditation, typically with the help of others. One of them I kind of just had a feeling on my own going in as to what it might be, but that's where I think things like guided meditations, whether you're listening to a recording or having an in-person session, whether it be one-on-one or as a group, which I've done a couple of, it does kind of help to get that outside influence and perspective, reinforce that things aren't just coming from our own personal wish, and it's not just like confirmation bias, because, you know, like a lot of people probably want to be a wolf or bear or something cool, and we can't all be a big badass predator. With me, I've always loved cats, so like maybe my Fylgja would be a cat, but I didn't want to go in presuming anything or just worry that it was just reinforcing my own wishful thinking. So guided meditations and group sessions were very helpful for that. So the first Fylgja that I had come to me, or that I learned of, was during a one-on-one meditation slash sound bowl therapy session that someone in the community was doing for me, where I was laying down on a table in a kind of ideally, you know, quiet, private setting, and they played these sound bowls on me, and there were different ones to correspond with the different chakras. And at the time, I didn't really have a specific goal or intention in mind when I was doing this session. I just, you know, have chronic back pain, and I thought that maybe having the bowls played on my target areas would be helpful for that. While I was laying there, I ended up getting sucked into an impromptu realm travel session with Heimdall. So Heimdall appeared during this session. He clued me into the fact that your chakras are also a rainbow bridge, and that can also be a form of connection between our realms and the lower and higher realms, that we can act as that bridge. And so he ended up coming with me during this sound therapy session and kind of leading me not only through the body's chakras, but also through corresponding realms, showing me some of the more safe and human-friendly realms, and leading me through them from Asgard all the way through Niflheim and up to the gates of Helheim. And toward the end of the session, I got this vision of just a very bright white light, and in that, it's almost like when you close your eyes and you see those colors behind your eyelids, and it transitioned into this bright light even though I had my eyes closed. And I ended up painting it later on this wood disc because I saw this bright white light radiating outward, this warmth, this sunny light, and in that I could see the outline of a Dagaz rune and a rabbit. This is kind of exactly what I saw. And so after the session, I didn't really think much of it at the time, but I went back upstairs and rejoined the group because this happened during a gathering, a pagan gathering that I was at. So I went back upstairs to go about my business, and someone, and I hope that I can eventually figure out what book this was so I can get my hands on a copy, but it was a book on spirit guides and spirit animals and what their deeper meanings are and what the animal can mean in terms of your personality. And I ended up coming upstairs and seeing this book laying out and picking it up and flipping it open right to the entry on the rabbit. And as I started to read it, I was like feeling very called out because this description of what people who are rabbits are like just was me in a nutshell in terms of like, well, rabbits are very quiet. They can kind of be very keep to themselves and almost like enigmatic or mysterious in that way, even though they're these cute, adorable creatures. They keep to themselves, they're quiet, they don't make a lot of sound. They just kind of sit and observe and watch everything going on around them and take everything in and make note of it for their own like benefit and survival. And they don't always tell people like what they're doing or share a lot of themselves, so they can kind of, be very inward and guarded. They also shouldn't be dismissed as like quiet, cute, fuzzy animals. You know, rabbits, they do have feet and teeth and claws, and I'm sure that if a predator was trying to attack a nest, the mama rabbit would be right there using those feet and teeth and claws to defend her loved ones and defend her family. And so just the description as I read it just really was calling me out. It was undeniable that this was me, like this was my personality. So ever since then, I just felt this connection with the rabbit spirit and felt like it was an embodiment of myself. And there have been one or two occasions since then that reaffirmed this in my mind, because I'm a person who has been able to lucid dream and do a lot of dream travel, and what I now know is basically astral travel in my dreams, and I've been doing it since childhood without knowing or being aware that that's what I was doing. And so now, since getting into witchcraft and paganism, I have since learned that that is what I have unknowingly, intuitively been doing in my dreams this whole time. So I'm starting to learn more about that and try to gain more control and mastery of those abilities. So one thing that always made me feel like maybe one of my other Fylgjas was a bird is, since I was very young, I have been able to fly in my dreams when lucid dreaming. I will become aware that it's a dream. I will be having a stressful dream, maybe not even an outright nightmare, but just a stressful dream, scenarios or things or people that I don't want to be a part of anymore. I wish to be excused from that narrative. And the easiest way to get out of that situation is just to fly away. 9 out of 10 times now in my dreams, I will consciously be able to do this and fly around and travel and go different places and just check out the scenery, basically, is what I spend 90% of my dreams doing these days, is just flying around looking at stuff. And so that was what first made me think that one of my Fylgja might be a bird, but I didn't want that confirmation bias to seep in, especially since one of the other animals that I've always been drawn to and liked besides cats was owls. So I thought that maybe one of my Fylgja was an owl at first. I had done 1 or 2 just like solo meditation sessions to try to meet my Fylgja, and I did have like a large tawny colored bird show up. And then I had another dream where I was like walking into my parents' house in the dream, and like this big tawny bird was sitting above the porch, above the front porch. Before I got off track with my ramblings here, what reinforced to me that one of my Fylgjas was the rabbit was that after finding it, I did start having dreams where I was in rabbit form, because I'm usually trying to kind of like creep around in my dreams and check out the scenery or see what's going on unobtrusively and like kind of go unnoticed at times. So I have this distinct memory of this dream where I was at a kind of group setting with, it was in like a room full of people, like almost like a party, or like, yeah, just different groups of people talking, and I was like even shorter than usual. I'm a very short person, but I was like at ground level, just kind of like weaving in between these people, and they didn't see me. And I was kind of like hopping around down on the floor as a very small creature. And after I woke up, I was like, oh, I was the rabbit. I was the rabbit in that dream. The other Fylgja that I have since come to confirm is the hawk. I thought maybe at first it was an owl, and so I was a little hesitant because I always really liked owls. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just my own brain and wishful thinking being involved there. A while back at another gathering, we decided to do a group meditation session led by someone in the community. We all went and just laid down or sat and meditated together as the meditation leader led us through this guided visualization to put us in touch with our Fylgja. During that one, like I said, I had already kind of had some hunches that I might be a bird because I fly a lot in my dreams, and had seen some birds in meditations and in dreams when trying to set intentions to meet my Fylgja. During this meditation, I can actually link you to it because it was through Fellowship of Northern Traditions, and I believe it wasn't in the gathering video where this took place, but it is an unlinked video where you can go listen to and view the entire session. So I will find that and link it in the description down below. Because during this session, at one point, we were like going through a forest and we came to a big tree, almost like Yggdrasil or the World Tree, and I climbed all the way to the top of the tree so I could see out over everything. And it was at this point that Freya basically showed up and was like, girl, you already done been new. You fly every night in your dreams. Every time I see a red-tailed hawk, ever since childhood, it's been my own personal omen of protection and safe travel. And since I came to meet Freya and start working with Freya, her in the myths wearing a falcon cloak and being able to transform into a bird of prey like a hawk, it was something I came to tie with her. But then, yeah, she basically showed up during this guided meditation and was like, no, it's you. You're the hawk. Because a lot of times when I am feeling very like emotionally overwhelmed and reaching kind of like that burnout, or yeah, just feeling anxious, feeling overwhelmed, I'm getting too sucked into the day-to-day grind of mundane living on Earth, that's when I would like basically ask Freya to lend me her cloak, to lend me her falcon feather cloak so that I could soar up above everything and gain kind of this objective view, separate myself from whatever's going on down here on Midgard, and basically, yeah, like I do in my dreams, fly away from the bullshit and gain some perspective and some separation from it so that I can collect myself before coming back down to Earth. So I will ask her to lend me her cloak. So between always seeing hawks as my own personal good omen, and then also now coming to see them as associated with Freya, and then being able to fly in my own dreams all the time since I was little, she basically, yeah, before we even reached the end of this guided meditation, she was already in there interjecting like, girl, you already done been knew that you are the hawk. And it kind of just confirmed like the big tawny bird that I had been seeing might not have been a big brown owl, but the hawk. So the rabbit is used for lower realm travel, like Midgard, down through the lower realms, such as Helheim and things like that, and doing shadow work. And the hawk is my Fylgja, or my spirit form, that I can take for higher realm travel. And I think that's why I've been flying in my dreams so much since I was young. And ever since learning that the hawk was my Fylgja, I have had dreams where I am not flying as a person, I am flying as the hawk, and like literally will be flapping my wings and have wings in the dream now. So I'm not always the hawk. Sometimes I'm just flying around Superman style like a person, but I have had dreams since where I am a rabbit and where I am in the hawk form. And so that just helped to reinforce and confirm for me that it wasn't just all in my own mind or wishful thinking, that these two animals are tied to me spiritually and are extensions of myself, because I have had dreams and meditations where I take on their form, and that is ultimately what a Fylgja is an extension of yourself, projection of your own soul in an animal form. And we can take that form to help us in these otherworldly realms. Yeah, I guess basically to sum up, that is how I came to discover what my own personal Fylgja are. So if you are someone like me who struggles to meditate and kind of maintain focus on your own, I highly recommend finding a guided meditation out there. I'm sure there are plenty out there on YouTube that you can use to help you. Also, another thing that I would try to do is before bed each night, I try to set intentions for my dreams. Before I would fall asleep, I would try to set the intent and just project that thought out there of, I would like to meet my Fylgja, or I would like to explore this tonight, and see if you have anything that comes to you in a dream. I had the big tawny bird kind of show up in glimpses here and there in meditations and dreams before it was confirmed that it was a hawk. The Fylgja, the way I see its primary role, is not so much as a spirit guide, because I have also had animals sent to me externally as messengers and spirit guides. I have had owls show up as a guide from like Frigg and Freya and Odin, and I've had other animals kind of show up as signs and synchronicities that were not related to being a Fylgja. It's not an outside messenger. The Fylgja is a part of you, and I see its primary role as aiding us in realm travel and astral travel and things like that along the more shamanic route. Can be a form that we can take in order to protect us, protect our mind and spirit and body during trance, realm travel, and astral travel. It's interesting to me that in the books by Kveldolf Gunderson, he did state that it can be possible to consciously inhabit the fetch's shape when faring away from the body. And it brings to mind the stories and the myths of Odin and Loki and other gods being able to not just shapeshift, but take on these animal forms. And while in some cases we see that they are able to actually shift their own physical form into these other animals, when it comes to flying creatures, even Loki needed to borrow Freya's feather cloak in order to turn into a bird and fly. And it makes me wonder if in some of the myths, this is what the gods themselves are actually doing. In cases where they might not be able to actually transform themselves into a different animal, I definitely wouldn't put it past Odin especially to be able to basically astral project himself into, say, Hugin and Munin, and be able to see out of their eyes and see where they are going and see what they see. We see a similar concept in Game of Thrones with warging, where some characters are able to take their spirit out of their body and put it into an animal and basically inhabit that animal and see what the animal sees, and even control the animal in some cases. And so it's interesting to me that not only is the Fylgja an outside manifestation of our own energies, but that we can not only work in tandem with it, but we can actually consciously inhabit it when faring away from our own bodies. And so as someone who has done that unconsciously in my dreams, that I think will be another goal for me to personally work toward, is learning how to do that more, both in my dreams and during kind of like waking meditation and trance session. That's basically all I wanted to talk about as far as the concept of the Fylgja is concerned, and I hope that it was helpful and informative for you. And let me know what experiences you have had with your own Fylgja and your own journey in finding your Fylgja. Feel free to share what yours is. In some circles it can be kind of a taboo subject, and I can see why part of protecting your own energy might extend to keeping what your Fylgja is a secret, in order for others not to try to use that information against you or exploit it or use it to target you. But I'm here to share my own personal experiences on this channel, and so that includes sharing with you what I discovered my own Fylgja to be, and that I have 2 of them, and that they are a rabbit and a hawk. I think it's also important to share with you that it's the rabbits to show you an example that we all don't have to be big badass predatory animals, especially just because it's Norse paganism and everyone wants to be a warrior or an Ulfhednar and a berserker. I mean, we can't all be that. We can't all be Vikings. Even back in the Viking age, not everyone was a Viking, and so it's okay to be something like a rabbit. It doesn't mean that you yourself are weak or anything like that, because like I said, you know, the rabbit can put up a fight. It can defend itself and its friends and its kin, and that's something that also kind of reminds me of myself. I'm very kind of quiet and unassuming. Meek might be a word that others would use to describe me, but just because I am mild-mannered does not mean that I am meek by any means. I will defend myself and defend my loved ones and the people who are important to me. So that definitely was something that resonated with me, and the rabbit spirit. Don't think that just because you don't have a predator or some big badass animal as your Fylgja that it's not just as capable and able and willing to protect you, that it's not just equally as useful or of value to you as another animal might be. I think a lot of people do end up being surprised when they find out what their Fylgja is, but lean into it, explore what those animals mean and how you could relate to them personally, even if it doesn't feel like a match for you on the outset. I'm just gonna leave this video off there, and until the next one, stay classy, pagan.